That morning, I woke up and realized my family was gone. No birthday wishes, no explanation. Just a photo on my daughter's Instagram with the caption, "Daddy took us to Dubai because Mom's boring." And in that moment, I knew everything had changed forever. I had always believed in the power of family. At 40, I'd thought my life was everything I'd ever wanted. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but it was mine, stable, predictable, and comfortable. My name is Lena. I'm married to Peter, a successful executive who works at a major finance firm, and we have 2 kids, Lucas, 16, and Sophia, 12. For years, I put my own career as a corporate lawyer on hold to raise them, to be the one who kept everything running smoothly at home. I'd always been content with my decision, or at least, that's what I told myself. Peter had always been ambitious, driven by his desire to succeed. He'd risen quickly through the ranks at his company, and while I was proud of him, sometimes it felt like I was playing a supporting role to his career. We lived in a beautiful suburban home, one we had saved for years to afford, with memories of beach vacations and family holidays carefully framed in every room. We were that family, picture perfect as far as anyone could tell. But something had shifted over the past few months. It was subtle at first, almost unnoticeable. Peter was always so busy, and I found myself shouldering more and more of the weight at home. The laughter of the kids filled the house, but Peter's presence was fading. He'd be home late, usually with some excuse about meetings or clients, leaving me to manage dinner, homework, and everything in between. I tried to ignore the creeping feeling that something was wrong. I told myself it was just the pressures of his job, that he was stressed, that we'd get back to normal soon. Then came my 40th birthday. Peter had been teasing me all week about the gift he had planned. "It'll blow your mind," he said with a smile, every time he kissed me goodbye in the morning. I laughed it off, but deep down, I was curious. He was always thoughtful with gifts, but this felt different. The night before my birthday, he was unusually affectionate. He brought home my favorite takeout, poured me a glass of wine, and told the kids to let me sleep in. "It's your big day," he said. I smiled, grateful for the small gestures. I went to bed feeling happy, anticipating whatever surprise he had up his sleeve. Little did I know that I was walking into a day that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. I woke up early, as usual, but there was an odd stillness in the house that immediately unsettled me. I opened my eyes and saw the sunlight streaming through the curtains, the room bathed in that soft glow that you get only in the early morning. Normally, by now, I would hear the usual sounds: the kids fighting over the bathroom, Lucas's loud music drifting through the walls, or Peter's footsteps as he made his way to the kitchen to brew coffee. But today, silence. I glanced at the clock. It was already past 9. No one had come in to wish me a happy birthday, not even a text or a call. The bed next to mine was cold. Peter hadn't even stayed the night. I pushed myself up from the sheets, my heart racing a little faster with each passing second. Maybe he was just running late? Or maybe he'd planned something special and was leaving me to sleep in longer than usual. I pulled on my robe and walked down the hallway. "Peter?" I called out, but my voice bounced off the walls with no response. I pushed open the door to Lucas's room, finding it empty. The bed was made, his favorite video game still scattered on the floor as if he'd just been here yesterday. Sophia's room was the same, tidy with none of the usual chaos of a teenage girl's belongings strewn about. I stood there for a moment frozen before my eyes landed on the empty closet. My breath caught. Their things, my kids' shoes, their clothes, even the backpacks they usually left by the door, were gone. My mind raced as I hurried downstairs, calling their names louder now, my voice full of urgency. "Sophia, Lucas, Peter?" But the house was eerily quiet. It wasn't like them to just leave without a word. I found myself in the kitchen staring at the untouched counter. No birthday breakfast. No signs of Peter's usual morning routine. No coffee brewing. No frying pan sizzling. The fridge was full of ingredients I knew he'd bought for my favorite breakfast: fresh strawberries, cream cheese, the special bread I loved. Yet, it was all still in its packaging, untouched. A strange chill ran down my spine as I scanned the room, and then I noticed something else. The 3 toothbrushes were missing. I rushed upstairs to the bathroom. The towel that Lucas always left hanging was gone, their shoes, their jackets. They had all vanished. I stood there for a moment, my hand pressed against the wall as I tried to steady myself. The silence in the house felt suffocating, like I was trapped in a place that didn't quite belong to me anymore. I grabbed my phone, desperate for some sort of explanation, and quickly scrolled through my messages. A handful of birthday wishes from old friends, my parents, a few coworkers. But nothing from Peter. Nothing from the kids. I sent a quick text to Peter. "Where are you guys?" I waited. The little delivered notification popped up, but there was no reply. I tried calling Lucas next, but the call went straight to voicemail. Then Sophia. I stared at the screen as her name flashed, hoping she would pick up, but the little blue dots showed up and then disappeared without a response. My heart began to race. Something wasn't right. I opened Instagram, hoping to find some kind of clue. And there it was, Sophia's latest post. I clicked on it, my stomach sinking as the picture loaded. There they were, Peter, Sophia, and Lucas, all smiling in front of an infinity pool with the Burj Al Arab in the background. They were at a luxury resort in Dubai. The caption was what really struck me. Surprise vacation with the best dad ever. Dubai. Luxury life, spontaneous adventure. Daddy's treating us since mom's boring anyway. I stared at it, reading and rereading the words, trying to make sense of it. Daddy's treating us since mom's boring anyway. The words stung like a slap in the face. My own daughter, my family, had gone to the other side of the world, celebrating without me on my 40th birthday. My legs gave way and I sank to the floor, still clutching my phone. I didn't even know how to process what I was feeling. Betrayal, hurt, confusion, anger. It was all mixed into one. They had planned this. They had deliberately excluded me. I felt numb as I scrolled through more pictures. There they were, boarding a first-class flight, checking into a resort suite with views that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage. Peter was holding up a glass of champagne, Lucas and Sophia with their virgin cocktails in hand. Every photo was a reminder of how easily they had left me behind. I didn't know how long I sat there, my thoughts swirling. But when I finally stood up, a strange sense of clarity settled over me. This wasn't just a surprise vacation. This was deliberate. I should have been angry. I should have screamed or thrown something across the room. But instead, I felt numb. The shock of what I had just seen on Sophia's Instagram was still settling over me like a heavy blanket, suffocating every breath I tried to take. I walked around the house in a daze, unable to focus on anything. I kept replaying the caption in my mind, "Daddy's treating us since mom's boring anyway." Was this really happening? Had my family truly left me behind, like I was some afterthought in their perfect lives? I grabbed my phone again, trying to distract myself, trying to figure out what to do next. I had to know more. I needed to understand how this could have happened, why this had happened. Peter had always been the attentive husband, the one who would leave sweet notes for me on my birthday, the one who made sure I was taken care of. I had trusted him, but now I was staring at a message that made me feel like I didn't matter anymore. And then it hit me. How did he manage to plan this without me noticing? How had he arranged an entire trip, planned a getaway with the kids, and kept it from me? I couldn't sit around waiting for answers, so I decided to investigate. I walked straight into Peter's home office, my mind sharp despite the fog of hurt. The door creaked open, and I stood there for a moment, scanning the room that used to feel so comfortable. His chair behind the desk, his files neatly stacked, the bookshelves filled with the remnants of his corporate success. My eyes fell on his locked desk drawers, the same drawers that were always carefully organized. I knew exactly where he kept the keys to the desk, tucked under the bottom drawer. Peter was meticulous about everything except for one thing. He underestimated me. I bent down, pulled out the key, and unlocked the drawers. The first drawer contained nothing but old papers and empty folders, but the second drawer, that was the one that held what I was looking for. There, shoved to the back of the drawer, were the credit card statements I hadn't seen before. I pulled them out, my hands trembling as I flipped through the pages. There were charges for restaurants I didn't recognize, hotels I knew he hadn't mentioned, and the clincher, 3 flights to Dubai booked over a month ago. They were paid for with the family account, the one we used for joint expenses, and Peter had never mentioned a word about it. I swallowed hard and kept going. Underneath the credit card statements there were hotel receipts, high-end hotels, all booked under his name. But what really made my heart stop was the name that kept appearing in the receipts. Sophie Jenkins. Sophie, his executive assistant. I felt like I had been slapped. I couldn't breathe as I picked up the next piece of evidence, a small burner phone hidden in the back of the drawer, not his usual iPhone. My fingers shook as I powered it on. No password. He must have forgotten about it in his haste. The screen lit up with a few text messages. I could barely keep my hand steady enough to read them, but I forced myself to look. The first one was from 2 weeks ago. Can't wait for Thursday night. Same time, same place, wear that red thing. Another from a week ago. Dubai will be amazing. Told the kids it's just a special trip for them. They'll think it's just a fun vacation. My mind reeled. Thursday nights, the late work meetings, the client dinners Peter always had. It was all coming together now. The excuses, the sudden attention to his appearance, the days spent away from home. None of it was about work. It was about Sophie, and Peter had been seeing her behind my back. The worst part? He'd been using our family account, the very funds that were supposed to support us, to fund this affair. I wasn't just a neglected wife. I was being used. I stood there for a moment, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I had so many questions. How long had this been going on? How many times had he lied to me about late meetings? How many nights had he spent with Sophie while I was left holding everything together? I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat down at his desk, staring at the phone in my hand, trying to gather my thoughts. There was no going back now. I wasn't going to pretend like everything was fine, like I hadn't just discovered the worst betrayal of my life. I needed to make a plan. I needed to make him pay for this. And for the first time in years, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Anger. The kind of anger that was going to drive me forward. I could have let it all go, cried, yelled, begged him to explain. I could have crumbled under the weight of this betrayal. But something in me snapped. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me into thinking this was somehow my fault. I had spent 17 years supporting him, putting my career on hold to build a life together, to raise our children, and this was how he repaid me? By abandoning me on my 40th birthday? By using the very money I helped earn for his affair? No. He wasn't going to get away with it. I took a deep breath and stood up, shaking the thoughts of rage and betrayal from my head. This wasn't about revenge fueled by emotion. No, this had to be calculated, precise. And I would use everything I knew about Peter, his career, and his company to take him down. I started with the credit card statements. I knew Peter's company had a strict code of ethics, one that emphasized integrity above all else. Employees were expected to behave in a way that reflected positively on the company, especially the executives. If Peter had violated that, if he had been using company funds for personal gain, he would pay the price. But I wasn't just going to report him to HR and let them handle it. No, I needed to make sure he was caught red-handed with undeniable evidence. I knew just where to look. I grabbed my phone and called Mark, a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. He worked as the head of security at Sullivan & Pierce, the very company where Peter had risen to the top. He owed me a favor from when I'd helped his daughter land a job at my old law firm, and I knew he would come through for me. "Mark," I said when he answered, "it's Lena Harrington. I need your help." "What's going on?" he asked, his voice cautious but warm. "I'm putting together a surprise anniversary video for Peter," I lied smoothly, masking the anger simmering just below the surface. "I wanted to include some clips of him at work, some moments that show his dedication, you know? Can you help me get some security footage from his office? Maybe some footage from Thursday nights?" There was a pause on the line, and I could practically hear the wheels turning in his head. Mark was no fool. He knew something was up, but he didn't ask. Instead, he said, "I'll see what I can do. We've got new systems in place, but I can pull a secure link for you. It'll be temporary, just a few hours." I smiled to myself, feeling the satisfaction of having taken the first step in my plan. "Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it." "I'll send you the link," he said before hanging up. I sat back down at Peter's desk, feeling strangely calm. This was it. I was going to build an airtight case, one that Peter couldn't talk his way out of. All those late nights, all those client meetings, all the lies he'd told. Soon, they would come crashing down. The next few hours passed in a blur. I pulled together everything I could find: credit card statements, hotel bookings, the burner phone. But the final piece of the puzzle, the thing that would really nail him, was the security footage. When the link from Mark came through, I wasted no time. I clicked on it, my hands trembling slightly, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from anticipation. The footage loaded quickly, showing the familiar halls of the office building, the employees trickling out for the night. I found the timestamp, selecting Thursday evenings for the past few weeks. I clicked on the footage from last Thursday at 7:43 p.m., the time Peter and Sophie always seemed to meet. The camera outside Peter's office showed them entering, Sophie carrying 2 glasses of wine. Peter greeted her with a smile that was far too familiar, a smile that made my stomach turn. I kept watching, my heart sinking with each passing minute. They sat too close. Their conversation started with business, but their body language told another story. Their shoulders brushed as they sat on the couch in his office, their faces inches apart as they exchanged papers. At 8:16 p.m., Peter kissed Sophie. It wasn't a quick kiss. It was a slow, deliberate kiss, one that spoke of intimacy, of a routine they had shared for months. I felt bile rise in my throat as I continued watching, knowing that I was witnessing a secret he'd been keeping from me, a secret that was about to explode in his face. The next part of the footage showed them discussing their plans for Dubai. Sophie had no idea that Peter had told the kids it was just a special trip for them, and he was laughing about how boring I was. He dismissed me, the woman who had supported him for years, as if I were some background detail to his life. I was done. I had everything I needed. I spent the rest of the evening compiling everything into a neat folder on my laptop. The security footage, the credit card statements, the burner phone messages. I even added a timeline of events, starting with the first signs of Peter's late-night meetings, leading to the weekend getaway with Sophie. It was all coming together. I knew exactly what to do next. I had a friend, Stephanie, a lawyer I'd worked with years ago, who could help me file everything. She owed me too. I called her and explained the situation. After a long silence on the line, she responded, "I'll help you, Lena. We'll get him. I'll make sure this goes exactly how you want it." I didn't hesitate. The time had come to make Peter pay. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg. I was going to show him exactly what kind of person he was and the consequences of what he had done. It had all been so perfect. I had everything lined up. Proof, witnesses, a solid case. I was about to deliver the knockout blow. Peter was going to lose everything: his reputation, his career, his status. And he deserved it. But as I sat there, preparing everything to send to the board of directors at Sullivan and Pierce, something stopped me. It wasn't fear or hesitation. It was something deeper. A voice inside me whispered that I was making a mistake, that I was about to ruin someone I had once loved, someone who had been part of my life for so long. It was that voice, the one I had suppressed for so many months, that made me stop and think, was I doing this because he had betrayed me? Or was it because I was hurt? I sat there for what felt like hours, the silence in the room almost deafening. The folder was open on my desk, filled with everything I had compiled, text messages, credit card statements, security footage. It was undeniable. Peter had crossed a line, one I couldn't ignore. But deep down, I wondered if there was a way to handle this differently. Then the phone rang. I picked it up, not recognizing the number. My heart skipped a beat. "Hello, Lena, it's me, it's Peter." His voice crackled through the line. He sounded different. He sounded scared, desperate even. "Please, can we talk?" I froze, my hand gripping the phone tight. "Talk? About what?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though I could hear the anger rising inside me. I know I messed up," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I know I've hurt you, and I know I've been distant, but please, Lena, just hear me out. I've been an idiot, I know. I never meant to hurt you like this." I closed my eyes, trying to hold on to my composure. This wasn't what I expected. Peter had always been the one in control, the charming, confident executive who could talk his way out of anything. But this was different. There was no bravado, no excuses, just raw vulnerability. I took a deep breath before replying. "You've been an idiot? Is that all you can say? After everything, Peter? You used me. You used our family's resources. You lied to me. And now you're calling me to say you've been an idiot?" "I'm so sorry, Lena. I've been selfish. I've been looking for something I lost a long time ago. Sophie, it was stupid, but I've realized now that I've been running from the wrong things," he said, his voice trembling. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I love you, Lena. I know it doesn't excuse what I did, but please, just give me a chance to fix this." I felt my chest tighten. He sounded sincere. Was he? Was he really sorry, or was this just another manipulation, another attempt to control me? "You think a phone call is going to fix this, after everything?" I asked, my voice low. "You've ruined everything, Peter. Everything we built. You've lied to me, betrayed me, and dragged our family into this mess." "I know," he whispered. "I know, and I've been paying for it. The way I see it, I don't deserve you. But I need to fix this. I need to prove I can be better. For you, for our kids." I bit my lip, my mind racing. Prove you can be better? I wanted to scream at him, to say that no matter how much he begged, it wouldn't change the fact that he had shattered the trust between us. But as much as my heart told me to shut him out, to walk away and never look back, something stopped me. It was the kids, Sophia and Lucas. They were my everything, and as angry as I was, I knew they were torn too. They loved their father, despite everything, and I had to think about them, about what was best for them, before making any rash decisions. "I can't forgive you right now, Peter," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. "I don't know if I ever will. But you've got to understand. I've been the one holding this family together for years, and now I have to figure out what's best for me and for them." There was silence on the other end, a long pause before Peter finally spoke again. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Lena. I'm asking for a chance to make it right. Not just for you, but for us. Please, let's try again. No lies, no secrets, just..." I didn't know what to say. I had spent the past few days stewing in anger and hurt, but now hearing Peter so broken, so human, it was hard to ignore the part of me that still loved him, still wanted to believe in the man he used to be. But then I thought of the security footage again, of the lies, the betrayal. I couldn't just sweep it under the rug. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice finally steady. "But don't expect me to just forgive you. You've got a long road ahead." I hung up without saying goodbye. I spent the next few days in a haze. I couldn't seem to shake the weight of Peter's call, his desperate plea. It echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of everything I had once believed in, everything I had invested in this marriage. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Lena. I'm asking for a chance to make it right." Those words were burning in my brain, but I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to do with them. I thought of the kids, I thought of the life we had built, and then I thought of the betrayal, the lies. The way Peter had looked me in the eyes for months, pretending nothing was wrong while he was with Sophie. I had every right to walk away, to destroy him, to take everything he held dear. I had every right to let him crash and burn for what he'd done. But there was something inside me, a small voice that kept whispering, what if this could be fixed? What if there was a chance to rebuild? I couldn't stop thinking about the kids. They were hurting too. I could see it in their eyes when they came home from their trip to Dubai. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew something was wrong. Lucas had been distant, quiet, as if he was waiting for me to tell him everything would be okay. Sophia, on the other hand, had been angry. Towards me, towards Peter. But I knew her well enough to see through her defiance. She was scared, lost. She didn't know how to navigate this world where her father was no longer the hero, the reliable figure she'd always counted on. I had to make a decision. A choice that would affect all of us. A choice that would set the tone for the rest of our lives. The following morning, I woke up early. The sun was just beginning to filter through the blinds, casting soft beams of light across the living room. The house was quiet, as it always was in the mornings. But today it felt different. Today, it felt like the calm before a storm. I walked over to the family calendar on the wall. It was the one Peter and I had used to keep track of the kids' schedules, our own work commitments, family events. I stood there, staring at the dates that had been blocked off for his business trips that now seemed like nothing more than excuses. I took a deep breath, my fingers tracing over the dates. This wasn't just about Peter anymore. It was about me, and about what I needed moving forward. I went to my laptop, opened the folder I had created with all the evidence, the security footage, the credit card statements, the burner phone messages. I clicked through the files, watching the footage once more, seeing Peter and Sophie in his office, sharing moments that should have been mine. It hit me again. The overwhelming pain, the devastation of what he had done. And yet there was something else that stood out to me. Peter's destruction wasn't just in the affair, it was in the way he had treated me, the way he had made me feel invisible, unimportant. I had been living in his shadow for so long, supporting his dreams, his goals, his success. And in the end, it had taken me a painful journey of betrayal to realize that I had neglected my own. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. This was the moment I needed to take control. I couldn't keep living my life reacting to Peter's decisions. I couldn't continue being someone's afterthought. I had given him a chance to redeem himself, but I needed to know that I could stand on my own, whether he was a part of my future or not. That afternoon, I called Stephanie, my attorney friend, and asked her to meet me. I needed to discuss the divorce papers and make some final decisions. It was time. I was no longer willing to wait for Peter to change. I had changed. I had found my voice, my strength, and I wasn't going to let him take that away from me anymore. Later that evening, Peter called again. I could hear the desperation in his voice. "Lena, please, I don't want to lose you. Let's fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what to do." I took a long breath, sitting in the kitchen with my fingers wrapped around the edge of a mug. "You can't fix this, Peter. You had a chance to fix it and you chose not to. You chose to lie, to betray me. And now we both have to live with the consequences of that." "I'll do anything," he begged. "Anything. Just don't throw this away. Don't throw us away." I stood up, walking to the window, my hand pressed against the cool glass. It's already been thrown away, Peter. You've already made your choice, and so have I. I paused for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything settle on me. I'm filing for divorce, Peter. And I'm going to move on. Not because I hate you, but because I need to do what's right for me and for the kids. His silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. I'm sorry, I whispered, but it was the final decision I had to make. I hung up the phone without waiting for him to speak. The next morning, I met with Stephanie. The divorce papers were drafted quickly, the settlement fair but firm. Peter would lose his position, his reputation, but I wasn't going to punish him for it. The biggest punishment would be the loss of the family he had taken for granted. By the time I was leaving the office, I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had made the choice, and while it was painful, it was the right one. The days following my decision were a whirlwind. I was no longer living in the shadow of Peter's lies and betrayal, the weight that had clung to me for so long. This invisible burden I had carried, not knowing how much it had drained me, had finally been lifted. But with that freedom came a sharp ache, a deep sadness I hadn't anticipated. Peter had tried, of course. After I filed for divorce, he called me every day. Sometimes I would pick up just to hear his voice, the desperation in his tone. He begged for another chance, promised he would change. But the truth was, I couldn't listen anymore. His words had become hollow, just like the promises he had broken. I couldn't stay in the life we had built. I couldn't stay in the house that had once been our home, where so many memories were now tainted by his infidelity. I started looking for a new place, somewhere I could be myself again, away from the memories of him. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I would stand in the middle of the living room staring at the space we had shared for so long and wonder if I was making a mistake, but then I would remember the nights spent alone, the moments when I had begged him to listen to me, to see me, and realized this was the only way forward. The divorce process wasn't long, but it felt like a lifetime. The settlement was straightforward, as I had expected. I kept the house, my house, the one I had inherited from my grandmother. Peter would pay child support, but I didn't want anything else from him. I had already given up so much of myself for him, and I wasn't going to lose any more of me in the process of this disillusion. Through it all, the kids were the hardest part. I hadn't anticipated how much their pain would affect me. Lucas, my strong, independent son, had closed himself off. He didn't say much about the divorce, but I could see the confusion in his eyes. Sophia, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of emotions. She was angry, hurt, and conflicted. At first, she blamed me. She accused me of ruining the family. I knew it was her way of coping, but it didn't make the words sting any less. One night, a few weeks after the papers were signed, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring at the television but not really watching. My mind was somewhere else, on the life I had left behind and the life I was trying to rebuild. That's when Sophia walked into the room, her face tight with emotion. She looked at me, then at the floor, and then back at me. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who to be angry at." I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears that suddenly threatened to fall. "I know, sweetheart, I know, it's hard. But none of this is your fault. You don't have to choose sides." She sat down next to me, her small body trembling slightly. "I miss Dad, but I don't know if I can forgive him." I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close. "It's okay to miss him. It's okay to feel torn. But you don't have to carry the weight of this on your own. We're in this together, all right?" She nodded against my shoulder, her tears soaking into my robe. It was the first time in weeks that I felt like I was actually talking to my daughter, like I was reaching her. We weren't just mother and daughter anymore. We were two women who had been hurt, but who were learning to heal together. Lucas came to me a few days later, his expression somber but his eyes clear. He didn't say much, but he sat down beside me and just listened. And for the first time I realized that in his silence, he was finally starting to process everything too. He wasn't blaming me anymore. He wasn't angry at me for taking a stand. He was learning to accept it, to understand that what had happened was beyond my control. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing something right for them. I wasn't just protecting them anymore. I was showing them that it was okay to walk away from what was unhealthy, from what hurt you, even if it was the hardest thing you'd ever do. As time went on, things began to change. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but we were finding a new rhythm. I started spending more time doing things I hadn't done in years, reading books I loved, taking long walks in the park, reconnecting with friends I'd lost touch with. I took up painting again, something I had always enjoyed before life had swept me away in the current of Peter's ambitions. I had forgotten how much joy it brought me to create something with my hands, something that was purely mine. I also began to see a therapist, Dr. Mason, who helped me process all the pain, the self-doubt, and the anger. She helped me understand that it wasn't just Peter who had contributed to the breakdown of our marriage, it was me, too. I had neglected my own needs, lost sight of who I was in the process of trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother. I had put everyone else's dreams before my own, and somewhere along the way, I had forgotten what it meant to take care of myself. Through therapy, I learned that healing wasn't about forgiving Peter. It wasn't even about forgetting the betrayal. It was about finding my own path again, rediscovering who I was outside of my roles as a wife and mother. And once I found that strength, once I found myself again, everything else started to fall into place. 6 months after the divorce, I was offered a job with Sullivan & Pierce, the company where Peter had worked. It was ironic, yes, but it was also exactly what I needed. The position was in corporate compliance, a role I had once dreamed of before putting my career on hold for Peter. Now, I was going to be part of a team that helped businesses navigate ethical challenges. The work was fulfilling, and it gave me the sense of purpose I had been craving. But the best part? I had done it on my own. I stood in front of the mirror one evening, looking at the woman staring back at me. I was no longer defined by my marriage or by Peter's success. I was Lena. I was whole. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. The first time I woke up without feeling the weight of my past hanging over me, I felt like I was breathing again. It wasn't like everything magically fell into place overnight. The road to getting here had been long and painful, filled with doubts, questions, and nights where I thought I might crumble under the weight of everything I had lost. But here I was, in a space I had created for myself, surrounded by the things I loved, the people who mattered most, and a future that was finally my own. The job at Sullivan & Pierce was everything I had hoped for. It gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't realized I'd lost. The work was challenging, but fulfilling. I was helping companies ensure they stayed true to their ethical standards, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was making a difference. It also gave me the space to grow, to prove to myself that I was capable of so much more than I had allowed myself to believe for years. But work wasn't the only thing that had changed. My relationship with Lucas and Sophia, while still a work in progress, was beginning to heal. We were finding our way through this new reality together. There were tough days. Sophia would sometimes ask questions about her dad, about what had really happened, and I would always answer honestly, but with the understanding that she was still figuring it out in her own way. Lucas, ever the silent observer, had become more open, more willing to talk about his feelings. He wasn't afraid to admit that he missed his dad, even though he didn't agree with what Peter had done. In those moments, I realized how far we had come. There was no magic solution to healing a family torn apart by betrayal, but I could see it in their eyes. They were okay. They were resilient, just like me. We were going to be okay. One afternoon, a few months after the divorce was final, I sat down at the kitchen table, looking over some paperwork. The kids were at school, and I had a few hours of quiet before I had to head to the office. I had been thinking about Peter a lot lately, not with anger, but with a sort of detached sadness. I didn't hate him anymore. I had let go of that. He was the father of my children, and despite everything, I still wanted what was best for him. I wanted him to find his own redemption, even if that meant we would never be the family we once were. There was a knock on the door, and I stood up, surprised. It was rare for someone to just show up unannounced. When I opened the door, I saw Peter standing there, his hands shoved awkwardly in his pockets. He looked older than the last time I had seen him, a little more worn down, like the weight of everything that had happened had aged him in ways he hadn't expected. I didn't say anything at first, just stood there, watching him, letting the silence fill the space between us. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice tentative, almost nervous. I stepped aside to let him in, but I didn't invite him to sit. This wasn't the time for small talk or old comforts. This was about closure. This was about what had happened and what would never happen again. "I know I've already asked this," Peter began, his voice tight, "but I just need you to know how sorry I am for everything. I've been a mess. I've made so many mistakes, but the biggest one was losing you." I held up my hand, stopping him before he could go on. "Peter, you don't need to apologize anymore. We've been through this. The hurt is done, and I can't live in the past with you anymore. I've already moved on." His eyes flickered with something, regret, guilt, maybe hope, but it faded quickly. He nodded slowly, as if accepting something he didn't want to hear. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Lena," he said quietly. "I just wanted you to know that I've been trying to be a better man. For the kids, for myself. I don't want to lose them too." I exhaled slowly, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. "I want you to be a better man, Peter. For them. They need you to be that person, but I need you to respect the boundaries I've set. I'm not going to let you back into my life the way things were. I can't." Peter took a long breath, nodding again. "I understand." For the first time, I felt like we were finally on the same page, not as husband and wife, but as co-parents, as two people who had shared something beautiful once, but who had now found a way to move forward separately. He paused at the door, looking at me one last time before he left. "Take care of yourself, Lena. I really hope you find what you're looking for." "I already have," I said, and I meant it. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Life, as it tends to do, began to fall into a rhythm. I woke up every morning with a sense of clarity. I didn't need Peter's validation anymore, and I certainly didn't need his approval. I had built something stronger than the life I had been living, something authentic, something real. I spent more time with the kids, making sure they knew that no matter what happened between Peter and me, I was here for them. We took vacations together, just the three of us, and laughed the way we used to, without the heavy weight of betrayal in the air. We started new traditions, movie nights, hiking trips, cooking dinner together on Sunday evenings. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it was real. As for me, I started to rediscover myself. I joined a women's hiking group, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I reconnected with friends, spent evenings painting in my studio, and enjoyed quiet weekends at home, not feeling like I had to please anyone. I was learning to love myself again, to care for myself, to prioritize my own happiness. I was no longer just someone's wife. I was Lena, and I was finally free.